following the fleet. You don't know where you're going to go, so you just go to where other boats are.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you that is one of the biggest mistakes that you can possibly make, because it is, I don't know if this is a fact or not, but I'm going to say at least 90% of people driving their own boats have no freaking idea where they're going. And probably at least 75% of them followed somebody else who didn't know what they were doing. Hello and welcome back to the Fat Dad Fishing Show. I'm your regular host, Rich Natoli. And tonight we're going to do, Scotty Sevins is on with me tonight. And we're just going to kick back and we're going to talk about the things that we screw up as saltwater fishermen. So we're calling it 10 mistakes. We'll probably talk about more. We got an hour to talk about mistakes, and I have a ton that I could just rattle off. So we're going to jump into that. Before we get going, we're going to roll into the sponsors. Number one sponsor is Great Bay Outfitters on Radio Road in Tuckerton. If you need anything for your kayak, check them out at Great Bay Outfitters. And I'll tell you right now that in addition to Native and Old Town, they're going to be offering a new line, and it's not announced yet. So just be on the lookout, hoping to do it next week. But very excited. There's a reason that Great Bay Outfitters is growing so fast and is one of the top in the entire region. And it's not just the boats that they have, it's the service that you get, the selection that you have in there, and the fact that Paul is absolutely insane when it comes to pimping out your kayaks. And he's the guy that will indulge you and probably get you thinking of different things that you hadn't even thought about. So if you want to put power on your kayak, if you need a kayak, if you want to look at used kayaks, he's got them all. So Radio Road in Tuckerton. Quad, stay tuned. Kevin Driscoll is your guy if you have a Toyota truck. So you're talking Tacoma, Tundra, 4Runner, even a couple of the Lexus models. If you want to tune for your engine, get more horsepower, torque, better transition between the gears is how I would phrase it for us non-tech guys or non-mechanical guys. He has the tunes that'll actually get those trucks working better for you, especially if you're towing. If you're towing something, you're towing your boat around, you should probably check it out. His number is 484-633-5975. And then I am your other sponsor. So Natoli Real Estate. I am a realtor in southeastern Pennsylvania with Weichert Cornerstone in Bluebell. I also work out of the Collegeville office. So if you're looking at anything real estate related, reach out. Give me a call, 267-270-1145. You could also text me if you just find that easier. And if you need all the information for the sponsors, that is in the bumper to this on the video. It would also be in the podcast in the description. So with that said, I'm going to bring Scotty on right now. We're going to jump right in, and we're going to start off, Scotty, as you come on. A couple of things I want to say before we really get rolling, but I just want to say hello and welcome back.
How's it going, Rich? It's good to be back on.
It's going pretty good.
Yep.
We got some weird, to me, since I had like the control room in front of me.
Yeah.
I see two of you and two of me because there's some new feature now in this streaming. Too. You can see it too. Okay. Yeah. So there's a vertical view and then there's the horizontal view. So those of you, hopefully, and I'd like to see feedback on this, those of you watching on a phone should have a vertical format, which is much better than it used to be where we were side by side. And those that are watching on YouTube on a computer and have a horizontal screen, it should just look the way that it normally does. So hopefully that's the case. If not, I apologize. We'll get rid of it.
Yeah, it looks like it's top and bottom right now.
On the phone?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I turn it to the side, it's top and bottom still.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's on a phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, but the vertical mode in full screen, it looks okay. Actually, it's still top and bottom. Weird.
Okay. All right. So the question is on YouTube, is it top and bottom?
Yeah, it's
or is it side by side? It is. See, that's not good. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, all right. It looks good for Joe Billups. My brother doesn't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of looks weird. And you can't like follow along in the chat and everything looks small. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we're trying new things, trying to make it
Yeah.
easier on people. Still, the vast majority of people end up listening to the audio only. So they're like, what the hell are you talking about right now? But before we jump in, let's do a couple of things real quick. I wanted to let people know for the trip on the Osprey out of Atlantic City that we're doing, the TOG trip for the show. It's an open boat for anyone, by the way, but there are only, I think, 8 spots left on the entire boat. So there were a bunch that were filled this week. So if you want to get on there, jump in now. I believe it's about 120,
120. Yep.
122 with taxes and all that stuff. So yeah, sign up if you can. And I want to say this. So Scotty, you're going.
Yep. Yep. I got my ticket.
There are other people that have been on the show that are going that all of you may recognize if you're watching, right? So I would hope that regular listeners and watchers would recognize me. But just keep in mind, I won't recognize you. So, and it's going to be a mixed crowd. So not everyone's going to be there. So I would like to ask that people introduce themselves to me, because I am, believe it or not, with the podcast and all that other stuff, I'm a big introvert. And when I'm fishing, I kind of like, I don't know, crawl in upon myself, and I'm not very vocal at first. So maybe people can introduce themselves. I want to make sure I say hi to everyone and say thank you to everyone for coming that's there with us. And I leave the people alone that are just there.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I will second that as well. Definitely come say hi, introduce yourself, please. And yeah, because I may not have met everybody before.
Yeah. And hey, I may have met some people and not recognized people as well, because it's been a couple of years since I've been on the water. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that hopefully we have some good weather, because the wind has sucked. And let's use that kind of as our segue into your update. How's it looking? What's your report over the last week or two out there on the waters in, central New Jersey?
The weather has been really, really difficult. I mean, that's the bottom line. However, the one saving grace is there's been a lot of west winds, which you can fish along the beach and tight to the beach and right out front in winds that would typically I would never go out in. However, west winds are horrible for the back bay, especially like where I am in Ocean City. So those winds have really kept me off the water in the back bay for weeks. So,
yeah, and you got to run the inlet too, which is that's not necessarily good. Like a small boat with a west wind, you're fine off the beaches usually in a lot of places, but you still have to get there. And some of those inlets can get, depending on which way they're facing, they can get pretty nasty with the west wind pushing out on them.
Yeah. But I don't know. Other than that, the days that you could get out, I mean, things have been like really insane.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the most incredible sights this year that I've ever seen in my entire life. I really have.
Well, as far as like the
amount
tuna
of amount of bluefin, just like miles and miles of bunker getting blown up by mix of bluefin and bass. Like I'm not gonna lie, there's been some tough days in there too, and it really all like kind of works around like the moon, like I'm a big believer in that, but yeah, the majority as a whole, it's been some of the greatest times and some of like the toughest times as well, in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and you've gone primarily for striped bass, right?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So I have a couple of folks have reached out to me with their reports on TOG.
Yeah.
So I'll share that. And again, it's the weather that's really messing with them. However, what I'm hearing is if you can hold the peace, there are big fish in close, and it is going to be a great season for TOG, and that's what I keep seeing, even in the backwaters. If you can hold the structure that you're fishing with the winds, which can be pretty tough in the backwaters, because you're usually up against hard structure, at the water line. But if you can hold the structure, it seems to me like the water has cooled enough, the fish have moved enough that people are putting together some nice days. But again, just like you said for the striped bass, it's not every day is a consistent bite throughout, but there have been some nice fish pulled up over the rails on not only private boats, but a lot of the charter boats and the party boats that I've seen. I've seen some really nice fish coming up. So it's encouraging from that standpoint. The fish are here.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, is that primarily what you're hearing for South Jersey, or is that all Jersey as a whole?
So most of the guys that pass me reports are going to be Ocean City North.
Right. Okay.
The South Jersey guys that I know the most are fishing Central Jersey and north and into New York. I keep hearing from the New York guys that they're just having fun.
Yeah.
The fish are there. It's a solid season for striped bass, although the striped bass that I've heard has tapered off a bit up in like Long Island Sound. But the tog, I mean, the tog bite is good. Rhode Island, the tog, everything is going
incredible.
Crazy
I just keep seeing the fish come out of Rhode Island, and I got to tell you, like, it really makes me want to take a trip there.
Yeah. Well, Frank was up there and he was talking about it. Oh, and the other thing, I don't want to leave out Maryland and Virginia.
Yeah.
Striped bass bite out front. So in the ocean, I'm not talking Chesapeake right now. It has been fine. It's kicking off down there. So with some large fish too, some, over 40 inchers that are being caught sporadically. It's not like the border between New York and New Jersey right now with the 40 inch plus fish, but they're catching them, and it's a legit shot at catching them down there, both in the front, in Maryland specifically, in the front and in the back. So if you're down in Ocean City, Maryland, you head back to those bridges. There's some nice holes there. They are actually pushing through there and into the inlets. So yeah, so it sounds to me like it's a great season. I haven't been able to hit the water. The weather, the one day that I had, and I said, you know what, I should work today, but I'm not going to. So I was going to head down. I looked at the weather. I was like, there's no way I'm going to go down for this. There's just no way. If it were a west wind, I would have fished the beach, but it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what's the point in making that drive? And where I was going to go, I'm not going to say it, but where I was going to go, the reports I got was, it wasn't that good. Just a few small fish. Yeah. So yeah, so that's how it looks. But look, encouraging if we can get this damn wind to lay down for 5 minutes.
Actually, this week looks phenomenal. This looks like the nicest week of the entire fall, honestly.
Well, it's good. I mean, it's when the fishing should be picking up the most too.
Yeah.
Now through, Thanksgiving for striped bass, and then after that, well, at least let's get the 7th of December for the tog. No more starfish, Scotty.
No more starfish or lobsters.
Or lobsters, yeah. Yeah, well, then I'll take a lobster or two, but otherwise, no. My nephews are going to be on there. I think it would be hilarious if Dominic, especially Dominic, because he likes to pick on me, if he, and he's just a little dude compared to me, if he catches lobsters, I think it would be hilarious.
Or starfish.
So I need
or
to
starfish. Pass the baton on the starfish to somebody.
Yeah.
There should be a side Calcutta for starfish.
What would be great is if Paul catches starfish, because he's the number one person that keeps reminding you of your starfish prowess.
Oh, yeah.
So it would just be poetic justice.
Yep. Oh, I'll never forget it.
No.
And in fact, it's properly dried and mounted, and yep, I still have it.
You what you should do is attach it to a pineapple, like a necklace.
I probably should.
Yeah, you should have it out on the pineapple every time.
Right.
All right. So let's roll into this. So what we wanted to talk about, look, as we get to this time of year, it's not all just, we can't just talk tog and striped bass every single freaking week. So I'm trying to break it up a little bit. This is one of those things where we're just going to kind of go back and forth and be interested to see some of the comments in the chat as well about your thoughts on this. What are we missing? What are some things that you think? But we're going to go through, we're going to say the top 10 mistakes that saltwater fishermen make. and they're not in any particular order. There may actually be 12, 15 of them, but we're just going to start talking about these in the hopes of pointing things out, making fun of ourselves and other people, and just pointing out just some of the things that we all do. And most of these we know are mistakes, but we do them anyway, and we do them on purpose. So I'm going to start off, Scotty, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. I'm following along in the chat too. So if you see me looking down, that's why.
Very good. All right. So the first one I'm going to do it was the thumbnail for this. And I'm going to say not being stealthy. Now, when I say this, I'm not saying don't talk when you're fishing, because that is absolute nonsense. And I actually love when people get angry when somebody's talking out on the water. But what I'm specifically talking about is a few things. Running into a bunker pod and running into the bait because the run and gun got a hold of your adrenaline and you just can't pull back on that stick soon enough, right? Yeah. So running up onto it totally blows up the school, sends the fish down. I'm talking about sitting in a kayak or in a boat and dropping weights and having them hit the hull and just kind of echo through. I'm talking,
especially in the back bay.
Especially in the back bay.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about, and if John Creeley is watching, he will eventually, playing your radio on the water.
Yeah, I actually don't do that while fishing at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So I'm going to say that those are mistakes that you make where you're not being stealthy. And with that, I'm not saying you have to be dead quiet. I'm not saying any of that at all. You know, we all fish, think of the summers. You're fishing for fluke in the backwater, and you're fishing next to a channel. There are going to be boats and jet skis and everything going through, and they get accustomed to that. But what they don't necessarily get accustomed to is dropping lead weights, the boom of Kid Rock coming through the hull.
Yeah.
You know, all of that kind of stuff. And there is research that says that it will disturb them, and it may not make them leave, but it will make them more cautious and more alert and less likely to feed the way that you want them to feed.
I totally agree with that, Rich. And to add into that, like even like an idling boat motor makes a huge difference. Even I'll say, like, while fishing out front, if you're fishing on bunker pods and that sort of thing, you know, some of the guys that I've known that have done the best have been in the smallest boats. They would always go out and cut the engine like in the middle of the pod and do their thing. And they always crushed it. So there definitely is something to that. You know, when you're in the fleet of a bunch of boats and the wind's howling, it's not always possible, but there really is something to that. And I agree.
Yeah. Well, so I will say this, when I'm out kayak fishing, bunker pods will literally go right around the boat.
Yeah, they do.
Unless I start pedaling and just the propeller, and it's not even making any noise. I mean, the propeller's underwater, but just the sound there, they'll scatter and they'll move further away and they'll stay away until I stop and get still again. So I don't know scientifically if there's a big reason or not, but anecdotally, I can tell you that I can get closer with a kayak and they don't seem to like when there's a lot of waves slapping off the hull either. Yeah. So they'll stay further away. They'll still get fairly close, but in the kayak, they'll literally be within feet of you, like 2-3 feet. Like you could reach in. And there have been times in the past where I've just taken my GoPro off my head and dunked it in the water to get a view of the fish underwater. And they are literally right there. Yeah. So I'm going to say that is, based on this time of the year, that's why I wanted to say it first. Don't be the guy that's running and gunning full speed into the bunker. Take your time, approach it intelligently, and understand that you are using spinning gear for a reason. And that reason is so you don't have to get on top of them.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And there's a lot of that this time of year. And the way the current is moving and the way the wind is moving as well should really dictate where you're and how you're going to approach that pod. You know what I mean? Yep. And if you see a fleet of boats, don't cut right through the dead center of all of them. It's just not like the intelligent way to do things. And listen, like
Yep.
we've all done things, you know what I mean? But I've seen a lot of what you were talking about, and boats getting too close and cutting other people's fish off, which actually happened this week, or nearly happened, but
Fun.
happens. Yeah. Yeah.
I see. I do get entertained by that because I love watching the fights on the water and the yelling. And when you're lucky enough to be on the same channel as them on the radio,
Oh yeah.
I do enjoy listening to that.
I actually, funny you say that about the radio. I don't even turn my radio on, not even once.
I rarely do.
Yeah.
In a kayak, it's a little different because you want to have that like right there.
Feature.
So I'll often keep it on low if we split up and we put distance between each other. But when there's a fight, though, like the Raritan Bay is the classic place. When there's a fight, especially if it's a New Jersey versus a New York boat, I will start scanning channels looking for it.
I can hear it in my head now.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing.
Rich, I'm gonna lose it.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
You stupid New Yorker, you stupid New Jersey person.
Yeah.
And as I always say, it's most likely a Pennsylvania person.
Your mother.
Yeah.
No,
it's
your sister's ass.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. All right. So that's number one. Do you want to give number two, or do you want me to keep going?
I'll tell you what, like, and like I never shied away from putting my fishing fails. Like I actually did it for a while. Like I would put together like my fishing fail video for the year, or even do like fishing fail Friday every now and again, because I don't care how good you are or how long you've been doing this. Stupid stuff happens when you're on the water all the time. Yeah. You know what I mean? From getting stuck with spiny dogs to literally casting. This is my favorite that I do a lot when I'm in a rush and I'm trying to retie. I'll try to trim the tag ends and clip the entire knot off. You ever do that? Then you have to retie a second time. Yeah, there's so much.
So that's actually one of the ones I had. We'll bring it up. Fishing knots. So I have that on there. Tie your knots correctly when you're on the water. So there's no excuse if you know what you're doing. So for example, I know that I'm going to be on the Osprey on the 7th. So I will have everything tied up beforehand on the rod that I need. So that rig will be tied and ready to go. And I know it's going to be a good knot. But what happens is you lose a rig, it gets chafed or something, you want to replace it. So you decide, I'm not going to wait for the mate, I'm going to tie it myself, which is probably a good idea. And it's not a knock on the mates, it's just that they are going to tie the fastest knot possible. So what you run into is you end up tying a knot and it's not done properly. So use the FG knot as an example. You can tie an FG knot and it can look perfect. If it's not tied right, if you just reversed one thing, all you have to do is put about 2 pounds of pressure on there and it will literally slide apart. Yeah. I mean, very neatly slide apart, but it has enough strength on there to hold the weight until you set the hook, and you'll set the hook and it'll immediately just pull right off.
Yeah. Cinching that knot up properly is like of the utmost importance. And I'll even go as far to say this, like for me, my experience with that knot, it's an amazing knot and it has its purpose. I use it especially when I'm like chasing bluefin, because the size of the leader, that's the only thing smooth enough to run through the guides. However, I noticed that knot will come untied on you. At least it does for me, no matter how many half hitches I put on it, no matter what. So I always secure that up with super glue. That's just for me. And honestly, that's a knot that I'll tie at home and not on the water. If I'm out on the water, a lot.
You're doing what, uni to uni?
Uni to uni. It's just I can tie it the fastest in my sleep, but yeah.
So that's what I call a mistake.
Yeah.
Going to the uni to uni, and here's why. All right. So if you, I will say a couple things about the knot. Practice it so that you can do it fast. And in my mind, you want to use the best knot possible. It is my only opinion, it is my opinion that the FG knot is the best knot that you can tie when you're going leader to braid. All right. So in my mind, you should always take the extra 30 seconds. You know, it only takes about a minute to tie if you know how to tie it quickly. I was at the point, probably not now because of all the time off the water, but I was at the point where I could tie it in the dark and not even have to look at it. And it was good. And I would leave it on for like a year until my leader got short enough that I had to change it out. But what happens is people will try to tie quickly to get down on the bottom again or get that line out there. And they end up because of a poor knot, they end up losing the fish. You know, they get the bite, they hook it for a second, and then it parts. And yeah, you save 20 or 30 seconds, but now how many minutes did you lost a whole fish? Like that entire time that you were fishing, maybe it took 5 minutes, 10 minutes before you got that bite. That entire time was wasted because you were never going to be able to land a fish.
I agree with you. And testing your knots, it's something that I do regularly every single time. You know what I mean? Just to make sure it's secure, because I think that we've all had that happen before. You know?
Oh, literally everybody. Yeah. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Poveromo, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everybody's done it. All right. Now you throw one of yours out there.
So let me see here. Now you got me drawing a blank.
All right. I got more. There was actually one in the chat that Benji put in there.
Yes. That's a beautiful one. Abandoning your fishing plan.
Yes.
Actually, something along these lines was actually on my list. So
me too.
That's a really good one, Ben.
Yeah. So abandoning your fishing plan. So I have it across two different things. The first thing that I have is you should have a plan.
Yeah.
And that's first and foremost to me. So when you go now, I'm not going to say that I always have a plan, but when I want to be sure that I have the maximum chance to catch a fish, like I'm out serious fishing, and full disclosure, I'll do both. I'll just go on the water and screw around all day and not care. There will be days where that's my plan. But then there are days where I'm going and I'm like, I'm going to limit, or I'm going to go for this. And I have a very specific focus. In that case, you better have a plan. And the reason is, to me, really simple. The spots that you want to go and the techniques that you use for nearly every fish is going to be dependent upon several factors, all of which change, right? So a lot of variables. You have the tide, you have the wind, you have the air temperature, you have the water temperature, you have all of these things, the structure and how the water flows over the structure, how the current's going. So you have all those things. So if you don't plan, all you're doing is going to a structure or a spot.
Yeah.
And to me, if you're going, and to get to Benji's point, if you're going to go through that and you're going to plan according to the conditions to maximize your opportunity to get fish, you need to have confidence in that plan and know that you didn't just make this stuff up. The fish should be there, and have confidence in yourself, because maybe you didn't get them on the first one or two drifts, but the third one might be where you unlock it.
Yeah, it's that, and it's something that I probably say almost every show, but having a plan B, C, and even D, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're going out. And I agree with you, and this is a mistake that I make, spending too much time on something that clearly just is not working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like a fine line. You know what I mean? But I usually get a feeling in my gut if I know like the fish are there, and what we're going to do is going to work out. But there's also times that like I said, like I spend entirely too much time focused on one thing and not just jumping, to plan B, or
right.
keep in the case of this time of year, keep searching until you find what you're looking for. That's the one big thing that I always say.
Yeah, and think about tournament fishing.
Yeah.
There have been several tournaments, and there are people in the chat right now that could back this up, that I've been out with, and we had the plan, and it was our first spot is A, and if that's not working, it's B, but it's in that same area and very close to each other. And then the plan is we're going to fish this way until it gets to be 11:30, and then the tide's going to do this. So we want to be at this spot. And if that spot's not working, we have this other spot that we think is going to work, based on the conditions. And the other side to that, though, is some people don't stay long enough on a spot, right? They don't stick to the plan long enough. They don't put enough into it. And this is another point that kind of bleeds into this is some people will go to a place and they'll single drift it, right? So they'll go over one piece and they'll go over once and then they'll keep going. And next thing you know, you've drifted 2 miles and you didn't get anything. You didn't really fish a spot. You fished maybe 3 feet of a spot in that one drift in just like a line down a channel. And to me, then they pick up and they leave. And to me, you haven't given it what you should have given it. If that spot checks out and those variables should line up for you, you should have confidence in that and give it another 2, 3, 4 drifts until you're really sure that you've hit it every way from every angle, and then move on. And I will say this is probably why I see a lot of kayak fishermen outfish boats on certain days where it's more of a grind day. It seems the kayaks, because you can't just pick up with most kayaks, you can't just pick up and just motor somewhere else 1.5 miles away and be there in a minute, right? It
forces
I got to invest an hour
with what you have.
Right. So you make sure you work it. So yeah, but that's a good point that Ben brings up there.
So I also have another one similar to that. So, and I used to make this mistake all the time, especially this time of year. Like, I always leave in the dark, and I'll have an idea of where I want to go, and I'm running for miles in the dark, just to realize that I missed the bait pod in the dark 10 miles back. And now you're just finding out about it from, your buddy that might be out on the water. And that's something I used to do all the time. And I started to approach things a little more methodically in that way. I'll still have an idea of where I want to go, but some days I'll really take my time searching, especially while it's still dark out and you can't visually see the bait pods and you don't.
Right.
So I'll take my time a little more and using all my senses. In fact, I just made a post about that. And that's another thing that I'm a big believer in too. Not just fishing with your eyes, but sense of smell is a big one.
Yep.
What you can hear when you're quiet, I just the other day, I took that approach and I didn't, because I didn't want to blow past bait. And I just crept along really, really slowly, pulling it out of gear, smelling. A lot of times I'll get the smell. I'll smell a bunker pod before I'll even see them or hear them.
Yeah.
A lot of times, that they're around. Then it was still dark out and had the boat at total idle. I could hear off in the distance. I could hear the splash, the little bit of splashing and everything. So using all your senses is a big one, especially if, you might be in a lot of fog or you're fishing in the dark or low light times, so that's a big one to keep in mind.
Yeah. And I would say if you're going to go out that way, if you have side scan, you should be slowing down every once in a while and just checking the side scan. It's the same thing as your vision. It's amazing what you can pick up, 100 feet off to the sides. I mean, you're covering, you're not covering a ton of water, but you're covering, 200 feet plus. and you'll get to
Yeah.
see what's there. And all you're looking for for striped bass specifically is the bait pods,
Yep,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, I have
And
mine set on 200, I believe, looking out 200 feet to each side, which might be a little much, but like when I'm going at like a high rate of speed or, it just helps me kind of like narrow it down.
yeah, I mean, it's like a search bait.
Yeah.
You're just hauling it as far as you can to see, is there anything of interest, any reason to stop and actually spend time here?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great one. I think it's a great thing to think about. And I know a lot of people don't think about it. They just kind of set it on cruise and just start going.
Do you have side
And
scan on your kayak, Rich?
I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
really
I
helpful.
only use it to look for bunker. So I don't use it I never turn it on unless I'm looking for bunker, to be
Okay.
honest with you.
Really?
I don't need it for striped bass. I don't need it for other things like that. I use it just to find the schools of bait, and that's
Yeah.
it.
I will say it's amazing the things that you can locate, even in the back bay, like rubble piles and structure that you never knew was there, just by
Yeah.
having your side scan on as much as possible.
Yep. If I were more into the bottom fishing in the kayak,
Yeah.
as far as like, tog fishing and so on and so forth, I would definitely I would have that on all the time.
Yeah.
Moving between spots, I would be scanning everything. Sheep's head,
Yeah.
I would be scanning because we all fish bridges, but bridges are just the easy way to do it. They're all over. If you can find the pieces anywhere, I mean, you're just going to be all over them. But I don't do a lot of sheep's head and tog. I like cold water tog, which means I'm not in the kayak. I'm jumping on a boat.
Right.
So it's a little different for me, but yeah, I think using the side scan and understanding how to use your electronics is a huge piece. I can't tell you how many people, and you've seen this, they buy this great, this great fish finder. Like, this is great. I got side scan. I got, look at this high definition. They never dial it in and they don't know how to use it. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many people I've seen in kayaks and they're looking at their side scan. I'm like, you have it reversed. It's not your right. That's your left.
Right.
And I don't know how they did it. Like, it should default the right direction, but yeah, they're looking at structure. I'm like, that, just switch it. Like, that's your right-hand side. That fish is on your right, but you think it's on your left because you have it set up wrong.
Yeah, I guess, and knowing how to read what, like, a side scan properly, because it is really confusing when you first try and start to figure it out.
Oh yeah, because it's not the same as a traditional sonar. It's
No, not
just
at all.
not. It does different things and you have to look at it from a different perspective. So we could put that as a mistake, not knowing your electronics, but yeah, I think you bring a good point. It was commented in there. I think Paul said running over fish to get to fish. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, and people like running over feeds. I know we already covered that, but just like blitzing bass and people just running right through it, and not, again, not knowing how to approach a feed properly, to where
Yep.
You're not going to disturb them and they'll move towards you instead of you pushing them away.
Right. All right. How about this one? Here's another one. I submit to you, in most cases, not all, in most, and I'm thinking more specifically summer fishing,
Yeah.
following the fleet. You don't know where you're going to go, so you just go to where other boats are.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you that is one of the biggest mistakes that you can possibly make, because it is, I don't know if this is a fact or not, but I'm going to say at least 90% of people driving their own boats have no freaking idea where they're going. And probably at least 75% of them followed somebody else who didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
So you end up just kind of stacking up on people who are only there because, maybe they caught a fish there 2 years ago, but it's a totally different situation, different conditions and everything. So they go there. Somebody else goes out and say, I don't know where to go. Oh, there's a boat over here. Let's check out near them. So now both are thinking, oh, well, there's someone else here. There must be fish. And then the third comes up, and it's just like this vicious cycle of people fishing just because somebody got there first and started fishing. Now, that doesn't necessarily apply to all types of fishing, right? I mean, if there's a school of bunker and there's 30 boats around it, and, you know, there's a good chance that they're there because they found the fish there. But for other, you know, when you're fishing specific spots, I think that happens all too often. People just see boats and they just head for boats, and nobody knows it. There's nothing to say that they know why they're there. If you can't figure out why they're there, they probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah. So another, well, mistake too, but it helps me out in the way, is people not leaving early enough and leaving too late, or missing a tide. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, and tide can like really correlate to fishing out front as well. On certain days or certain moon phases that like aren't as favorable, like we've had like days this year where those fish would only turn on like after that tide switch, and you would get like a short window out. You know what I mean? So yeah, leaving early enough, you know what I mean? That's like leaving the dock too late. That I feel like that is a big mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you can often miss the window. I don't want to get up at this time. Okay. Well, you're probably going to miss the window.
Yeah. And I actually made that mistake the other day, actually, but it happens to everybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it definitely does. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'm like, I'm not going to go, so I'll suffer. But I know that if I'm not going to go and be there at first light, because I don't want to get up at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I've made that decision that I'm going to miss the best bite of the day.
Yeah.
And if I still go, then that was fine with me, and I just accept it. But there are people that go and they think, well, it's still going to be good at 10 a.m. Recent reports say it's not. So I don't know why you think it's going to be today. Unless it just happened to flip the trend today.
I'm telling you, Rich, it's just so crazy how different every single day has been this year.
Yeah.
You know, from an ocean that's alive and boiling, and the most natural National Geographic epic things you ever saw, to the next day, totally dead. Yeah. All the bait's still
That's
there.
fishing, my friend.
Yep. All the bait's still there. Nothing changed, you know, but yeah, it's crazy.
All right. What else you got?
So I talked already about burning past the fish and driving too far, because that was a big one with me. Taking care of your tackle. I am so bad with this, you know.
Me too.
Because really, when it comes down to it, that's you spend all this time, money, and get so amped to hook like the fish that you've always wanted to hook, but then your reel seizes up because you didn't have it serviced, or something to that effect, or your tip has been loose for like a couple trips now, but now your tip, like you're on the water and now your tip fell off and you're kind of in a pickle. Yep. You know what I mean? Yep. And it's something that happens to me all the time. In fact, I'll call myself out on this one. Like, I think I broke like the second or third guide down on my rod, so it didn't exactly affect it. It was still fishable. And I still fished for a couple of weeks before I took it to like my rod guy to have like spun up and fixed. You know what I mean? It's stuff like that, but it would often get tangled every time you want to make a cast. So taking care of your gear properly, that's one of the biggest things. And it's something that I really need to take my own advice on.
Yeah. So I'm pretty good with the more expensive gear. So like the rods and the reels. What I'm bad at is hooks and lures.
Yeah,
Scotty, I can't tell you how much money I waste because, I'll fish a bucktail and I'll just like throw it in a bucket and I won't even rinse it. And I won't, but here's the thing. And here's where I don't make a mistake. I just kind of suffer the consequences of my actions. I won't fish it after that.
Yeah.
I'll just have to get a new one. So I just
Yeah.
end up
I'll throw
wasting
them
money
away.
because I believe this is stupid, but I'll say it out loud. I think I may have said it before. In my mind, every single drop when I'm fishing saltwater has a potential for a world record something. So I want to approach it that way. So I will not put a crappy rusted hook or a previously bent hook or
Yeah.
a white bucktail that turned brown because it was sitting next
On
to something that
rust.
rusted out. Yeah. So I won't
Listen,
do
I
that.
got $70 plugs that are sitting in my plug bucket right now with that exact thing on it and rusty hook.
Yeah.
Like this is something I am horrible at, Rich. And again, I'm calling myself right out for it. I got a whole bucket full of stuff that's like you either have to replace all the trebles and split rings on them now, or just throw it away. And
Yeah.
depending on, I mean, if it's a nice plug, like a big expensive plug, like I'll do it, but that costs a lot of money and it's easier to just wash it off and dry it out
Yeah.
and take care of it the first time than it is to
Yep.
have to, you know, and I'm super guilty of that. Also, the
Yep.
way I store, especially my soft plastics for the fall, is I'll hang them. I have a bucket that I'll hang them on. So all the tails will be flopped over, right? Well,
Yep.
guess what?
Yep.
After a couple weeks, they're permanently
They
flopped
stay.
over and that bait doesn't swim right. Okay.
Right.
Like I have it was like a $40 like hoagie tuna lure and $40, man, that's a lot of money.
Yep.
And it doesn't swim right now because the tail has a permanent like bend in it.
Yep. Well, and you see actually people with fishing rods like that too, because they
Yeah.
store it with tension on it and
Yeah.
it's, or they lean it against a wall in a corner
Correct.
and it gets a permanent. Now it's usually the fiberglass that'll do that
Yeah.
most easily, but yeah, like those types of things. That's a huge mistake. I make that mistake with my terminal tackle all the time. I totally admit it. And I have spent thousands of dollars just buying just bucktails alone. I mean, I took my kayak in a couple of weeks ago. Finally got the garage cleaned up and the way I wanted it. Got the kayak in there, and I noticed that my fluke bucktails are not only in. I knew they were in there, but the waterproof tackle box was open. So it didn't fill with water, but it was almost like a greenhouse of moisture. So, that's probably about, I mean, you figure they're like $5 to $8 each. And I think I threw out maybe 25 of them.
Yeah. It gets expensive real quick.
Yeah. And yeah. So anyway, that to me is a huge mistake. A huge mistake. I agree with you. What about the mistake? Do you make the mistake of, you probably don't anymore, but I'm going to make a statement here.
Okay. Shoot.
And I'm going to be overly dramatic with it, just to kind of, even though it's what I say is not perfectly true. If you break a fishing rod, it is your fault. If you break your fishing rod, it is your fault. All right. Not 100% of the time, but you have probably either A, high sticked it, or B, damaged it in transit or storage, chipped the laminate or something like that and weakened a spot on it. I have watched people on the water snap a rod and then insist they weren't high sticking. And I'm like, you're literally the definition of high sticking. You don't want to go much past 45 degrees on these things typically. And they're loading the tip of that rod and snapping the rod. And that is a huge mistake. And most of us will do it on purpose. And hopefully you understand you're doing it, because then you can try to accommodate what you're doing wrong. But that's a huge mistake.
Yes,
there are a lot of people that high stick and don't know it.
That's happened. It's happened so many times. Like you'll reel the fish up too close to the rod tip, right? And you'll go and pick it up. And guess what? The fish flops out of your hands. Your rod's standing straight up, and boom, the weight of that fish coming down snaps your rod tip off. I actually have video. I'm not going to say the person by name, of this happening. But yeah, I've seen it happen too many times. I've done it myself.
Yep.
I've also made the mistake of using too nice a gear for the fish that I was targeting and being upset like when I broke it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So for instance, and now I did this strike bass fishing twice too, mind you, with two of my rods. But like I'll have a fish take a run like around the front of the boat and you can't get around the front fast enough, right?
Yep.
And the fish, your line runs around the cleat of the boat,
Yep.
and
Yep.
as your rod tip touches the cleat of the boat, that fish runs and boom, snaps
You're done.
the tip off. Yeah, the
Yep.
cleat thing has happened to me twice, as a matter of fact, and I broke one when it ran around an engine as well. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
something
I broke one on an engine. I
yeah,
see it happen on kayaks a lot. If a fish takes you across the bow and you have a rod that's too short,
yeah,
you're almost guaranteed to high stick it.
yeah,
I mean, there's almost nothing that you can do, especially if you have your drag too tight.
yeah.
Which brings me into another one.
That's
Okay. Now I'm going to make fun of people online on this one.
yeah,
We've all seen these absolutely ridiculous asses that show their videos of them hooking up. It's usually on a beach, and they grab that rod and they set that hook, and they're like, they're powering backwards and they're putting everything in, and then they're getting pulled towards the water and all that stuff. It being overly, and look, we know that they're making it all up. It's all BS. There's no fish that's actually doing that.
right.
But the overly aggressive, I'm not saying hook set. You can set hooks very aggressive if you have, as long as you do it in line with what your tackle is.
Yeah,
Like bass fishermen, they can do that because their tackle is meant for that. But this whole thing about just power on power to horse that fish in, I think what people don't realize is the harder you're pulling that fish, the harder it's pulling back.
yeah,
And it can be bad on the rod, but more importantly, it can be really bad for the fish.
yeah,
Because you are bringing it to ultra stress immediately. So if you want a really stressed fish to go into your ice box, okay, I guess. I would assume that it's going to make it taste a little bit different. But if you want to release it, I mean, you're doing about as much damage as you can before we get into my next point, by just making it barrel through the water because you're just, way too aggressive on it.
yeah. And it kind of playing off that same note too. And it's something that, oh God, when I'm guiding, I see happen all the time, People doing a super high hook set. And as
Yeah.
soon as they drop the rod tip down, the hook pops out because,
Yeah. Letting slack.
because you got slack in the line. And
Yep.
especially with certain fish, and you know this with flounder, like you don't want to pump the rod with certain species. There's actually
Right.
a few species that you don't really want to pump the rod, just a steady, even reel, because the more up and down, that you have going, it's just more chance for, and the further your rod travels up and down, it's just more chance for that fish that there to get a little slack in the line and that fish to get away. Yeah.
Right.
It's something that happens on my boat weekly, I would say.
Yeah. And I make that mistake all the time with fluke. I will absolutely raise and lower the rod.
Right.
I'm very careful, but I know I'm doing it wrong.
Right.
I know because I don't need to do that. I set the hook hard and I should just reel it in and just leave it. And leave it at the right angle and just reel it slowly. That is the proper way to do it. I do not do it that way. I make that mistake on 100% of the fish that I catch, unless of keeper size. The little guys, I just, I don't even get excited about them. I just kind of reel them.
Yeah, you can usually tell.
Yeah. So I'm definitely guilty. I'm definitely guilty of that one. 100%. All right. Handling fish improperly.
Yeah.
I have to bring this up. So there are certain things that you need to know about fish, right? And if you're going to release them, if you're going to keep them, I don't care what you do. as long as you're not torturing the fish,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter to me. Hold them vertically, whatever. But fish are not built to be held vertically out of the water. So when you're holding up your striped bass vertically, I get it if you're just lifting it up and you're turning it horizontal and you're trying to support it. But no, even just lifting it that way is going to damage it. Understand that they have slime coats for a reason. So when people get
That's
on
a
you
huge thing.
because your beach striped bass or your beach bluefish is covered in sand and they talk about how you breaded it, that's not good for them. It'll pull it off. If you're in a kayak and you pull it onto your lap because you want to keep it horizontal, that's great. But if you're wearing a dry suit and that dry suit is not wet before you pull it up there, you just pulled all the slime off of it. So there are certain things that you need to keep in mind. You can grab the gill plate and you're not going to injure it. The fact is, those same 90% of people that can't find their own spots don't know how to hold a fish by the gill
Yeah.
plate without hitting the gills.
Well,
You
so
are
that's
probably killing it.
that's a big irk for me. I don't I hate seeing people holding fish by a gill plate, especially ones
Yeah.
you're intending to release. You know?
Well, yeah. If you're going to keep it, I get
Yeah.
it. It's very
No,
convenient.
I agree with that statement. I would say like 98% of what I do is like catch and release, but yeah, holding
Right.
by the gill plates is just yeah, one of the worst ways that you could hold a fish for sure.
Yeah. People get upset. They're like, oh, he's holding it by the gill plate. It's fine. It's like, maybe if you did it, because maybe
Right.
you know how, but a lot of people don't realize just how close those actual gills are and what
Yeah.
what the gills do. It's similar to the people that are trying to revive fish and they're pulling them backwards through the water.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
back
Gills
and
don't work
forth.
that way, guys.
Yeah. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. And there has been so many fish that like especially like in the fall and even in the back bay I'll have to do this sometimes with like some of the bigger bass where like I'll actually have to take the additional time just because a fish floats right away doesn't mean it's dead or can't be revived.
Right.
A lot of times you really should take the extra time to try and revive the fish. Like I always do this. Like I'll if I see a fish floating, I either know whether it's in tonic immobility. Does it? I'm not sure if everyone knows what that is, but sharks, if you turn them on their back, it puts them in like a trance-like state where they're almost like comatose and they can't swim or move. But if you right side them, they'll go. So I usually know if a fish is in tonic immobility and you can just poke it, or
Yeah.
that I'll actually have to put the boat in gear and swim that fish along like you're kind of trolling that fish along in the water for a minute or two, and you could usually get them to kick off that way. But
Yeah.
proper fish revival is a big thing, and there's sometimes you hooked one in the gill and it just bled, and there's your cockpit looks like a murder mess, and there's nothing you can do about that. But
Yep.
taking the time for taking the extra care to revive fish goes a long way in their, post catch survivability.
Yeah. I think the next one doesn't even need to be said, but based on that same thing that you just said, if you hook it too deep, just cut the line as far down into its mouth as you can and let it go right away.
Yeah.
Revive it and let it go. I see a lot of people really proud that they saved their $5 lure.
Yeah.
It's like, get over yourself. You don't need your $5 lure. You should never cast a line out, and if you're not willing to lose what's on that line. And look, maybe I'm being a little too preachy on it, but I don't think killing a fish, any fish, even a dogfish, is worth it for a lure. Just put it back in the water and let it go, and
Yeah.
cut it as far in as you can.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. In fact, and this was like years ago, one of my biggest backwater bass at that point in time had broken off somebody's leader, had
Oh
gotten
yeah.
away. And the fish had swallowed it. It was all the way down its throat. You know what I mean? It had like,
Yeah.
it was trailing like 3 or 4 feet a leader, even when I caught them. And when I
Right.
caught them, of course, I cut that as deep as I could have. But
Yeah.
just because they're hooked deep doesn't mean that they're not going to survive.
Right. Yeah. So give them the chance
I
to do it.
totally agree with that, Rich. That's a very good one.
All right. We're getting up to our time. We're over 10. I do want to mention, let's see. I have 2 more. The first one is when you're fishing, and it's not talking pelagics, not talking about migrating species, but talking about specific, think again, fluke, weak fish, speckled trout, redfish, things like that. You're fishing spots, not areas. So just because you're in the area of a spot doesn't mean that you're fishing that spot. The spot is the actual structure and the convergence of currents and, the bait collection. That's the spot. And that's why it often takes more than one drift or more than one cast to get in there, because it's almost impossible to hit it perfectly every time the first time. So a lot of people say, I fished here. I fished 2FB. What does that mean? Did you fish not 2FB specifically, but did you fish the ridge to the south? Did you fish, this current to the north? What did you do? That's not a spot. That's an area. You fished in the area of this buoy. You didn't, unless you actually literally fished the buoy.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people think they're fishing spots, but they're not. They're just in an area, and a spot can literally be a 20 by 20 spot.
It could
so
be,
just
yeah.
came by it. If you missed it by 3 feet, you didn't fish the spot. And I think that people need to realize that. And that's where electronics do come in. They are important to understand how to find the structure. I don't use them to find fish unless they're bunker, but learn how to read your electronics, because you could be fishing the area and not actually the spot that's going to produce for you.
Yeah, I agree with you. And on that similar note, Rich, playing off of that, like especially pertaining to like backwater striped bass and flats fishing for striped bass, like you could have a point that's holding, a half a dozen fish, and you could, with one improperly placed cast, you could spook that entire school there, and you just blew an opportunity, you know? So that is a big one. I've definitely seen that happen, especially with big topwater plugs and stuff like that. I've done it tons of times.
We blew
Especially
out the spot because you hit the wrong area.
Yeah,
I do that with docks.
like in
I'll hit
improperly
a dock.
placed casts, or you're not you're working with the current, and because you got like a wind against tide, and I don't know. It's just something I've done plenty of,
Yeah.
and you can actually see the fish leave. You can actually see them wake away and spook them all.
If you want an education, go to a flat and actually take a look at what, where you can see the fish, like fish the Outer Banks, go back in the Sound in Pamlico and just stand up and fish. And you realize very quickly that it does make a difference that you put it 5 feet to the left.
It does.
Because you just spooked off the entire freaking school of redfish. Ask me how I know.
Yeah.
I'm not incredibly accurate. Like, in the Northeast, you don't typically have to be that accurate unless you're fishing flats. Well, down there, it's very humbling because it's not just, oh, there were no fish there. It was, oh my God, I saw these 6 fish and I literally spooked them because I didn't hit my spot.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. I have one more that I want to bring up. And this was given to me by a friend. And he and his wife agreed. One big mistake that saltwater fishermen make is they bring their wife fishing with them and expect to outfish them because it never happens.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll be honest. I actually have that experience with my wife. She typically outfishes me.
Really?
When we go out fishing. Yeah. Yeah. It used to annoy me when we were, before we got married. I'd be like, what the hell is happening? Yeah. I'm on the boat, like she's never gone, or she's only gone a couple times. And I remember one time I'm out there, it's me and my dad, and my wife. We weren't married at the time, and we're fishing, and my dad he's like elbowing me. I'm like, what? He's like, what the hell is happening? I was like, I don't know. He's like, we shouldn't even be fishing. She was catching like 4 or 5 fish for every one that we caught. It was the most, it was the most annoying thing.
I say it all the time. One of my favorite things to do is to guide for women, because they truly do, in a lot of cases, in most cases, end up out fishing the men. They really do.
Yeah. So just
to
something
never
to keep
underestimate a woman on the water.
Yeah, don't expect, just because you bring someone, and it shouldn't just say wise, but don't expect, the real point that they were both making was, if you take somebody out for the first time or somebody inexperienced, don't automatically assume that you're going to have better results than them on that, especially on the first day. But she, the wife, I'm not going to say any names, but she wanted to also point out that she also has the biggest deer for this year. So the same carries over for hunting.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, all right. Do you have any others you want to do, or are we ready to wrap this one up?
I think I'm good. Nothing pressing. Okay. But this was a fun one.
Yeah. We could go for 43 days. I mean, there's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of good ones in there. A lot of people making fun of, I apparently have a Barbie rod that I broke. I don't have a Barbie rod. Thomas the Tank Engine rod is what I have. Yeah. There's a lot of good ones in there. A lot of good points in there. People that don't like Kid Rock music playing just because it's Kid Rock. Apparently, gangster rap from the 90s is really a draw to Fluke. So
I'll second that. Biggie.
Yeah, Wu-Tang is for the children and for the Fluke is what it's saying. So so maybe if we're going to play music, we have to switch it up a little bit. So Scotty, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. And look, if you know anyone that you think might enjoy these, would appreciate a share to everyone. And by the way, we're only 2 subscribers under 3,700, I think, or 3,600, one of those two. But
wow,
the channel's been growing pretty well, and the podcast is going bananas. So thank you to everybody. Obviously, people are sharing out, and it is greatly appreciated. We'll be back next week. Don't know the topic yet. It's that time of year, but we'll figure something out. Everyone, until next week, get out there, get on the water, and get some tight lines.